Caleb, I think I'm in love with someone else. My wife, Elena, whispered the words. Her voice was as light as a feather, yet it crashed into my chest with the force of a tidal wave. My hand, reaching out to serve the pasta, paused in midair before I slowly set the serving spoon back on the table. On the table sat a four-course dinner I had spent over an hour preparing after a long day at the office. The steam was still rising, carrying the aroma of her favorite herbs. I rubbed the bridge of my nose, closing my eyes for a second. When did this start? How far has it gone? Who is he? I didn't scream. I didn't throw plates. I just sat there, calm and composed, asking a few logical questions. My composure seemed to unsettle her more than rage would have. She twisted her fingers together, head bowed, refusing to meet my eyes. That face, the one I had once been so obsessed with, the one I thought was as pure as a Renaissance painting, was now etched with guilt and a sliver of relief. It's the art student we've been sponsoring. Julian. Julian. The name was like a needle, driven with surgical precision into the softest part of my heart. 3 years ago, Elena and I had started a private scholarship through a charity foundation to support a single fine art student. He came from the Rust Belt, somewhere deep in Appalachia. He was talented, but dirt poor. Elena, an oil painter herself, had a natural soft spot for struggling talent. She said seeing Julian was like seeing herself back when she was fighting for her dreams. So, we didn't just cover his tuition and living expenses. Elena often visited his campus to mentor him, bought him top-tier supplies, and took him to gallery openings. I was busy running my corporation, so I was happy to see her engaged. I thought this was our shared act of kindness, an extension of our love and values. Now it seemed that the kindness I extended had grown a thorn, curving back to puncture my own lung. How far has it gone? I repeated the question, my voice void of any fluctuation. Elena's body trembled. She finally looked up, her eyes swimming with tears. Caleb, I'm sorry. It's mostly a spiritual connection. He's so pure, like a blank canvas. Being with him, I feel alive again. We haven't physically slept together yet, but I know my heart isn't here anymore. Emotional infidelity, then? I summarized it for her. She bit her lip and nodded, tears finally spilling over. Caleb, I know this isn't fair to you. You treat me well. Too well. Our life is like a precision instrument. Perfect, stable, but cold. You've given me everything a woman could envy, but I feel like a bird kept in a gilded cage. Julian, he makes me feel passion. He makes my heart race. A bird in a gilded cage. I looked around our penthouse duplex in downtown Manhattan, at the priceless paintings she had created hanging on the walls, at the pigeon blood ruby ring on her finger that I'd won at auction last year. My heart felt like a wasteland. I thought I had given her the world. Turns out I just built a cage. Understand, I nodded. What do you want? A divorce? My directness stunned her again. She had probably rehearsed 1,000 scenarios. Anger, interrogation, agony, begging, but she hadn't anticipated this near-clinical level of reasonableness. She stammered. I don't know. Caleb, I don't deserve you. I've wronged you. It's okay. I stood up, walked to the study, pulled a file from the desk drawer, and placed it in front of her. This is a divorce settlement agreement. I've already signed it. Her pupils contracted violently. She looked at me in disbelief, then at the document. The bold black signature, Caleb Vance, was scrawled at the bottom in my familiar, aggressive hand. When did you prepare this? Her voice began to shake. A while ago. I pulled out a chair and sat opposite her. Elena, we've been married 7 years. I like to think I know you. You chase romance, pure art, and emotion. I'm a businessman. Our worlds were never fully compatible. All these years, I tried to give you everything, trying to merge our worlds, but it seems I failed. I pointed to the agreement. This penthouse, market value is around $4 million. It's yours. The car you drive, the red Porsche 911, is yours. I will also wire you $7 million in cash as a settlement. We have no children, no tangled assets to dispute. It's very simple. I have only one requirement. We meet at the lawyer's office tomorrow morning to finalize it. Elena's face went from flushed to pale, then to a sickly shade of gray. She didn't look at the agreement, which was, frankly, a fortune. She just stared at me, trying to find a trace of reluctance or pain on my face. She failed. My face held only the exhaustion and detachment of closing a business deal. Caleb, she trembled. Did you never actually love me? A killer question. I was silent for a moment, then asked, does it matter? Since you love someone else, what is the point of discussing whether I loved you in the past? It matters. She suddenly became agitated, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. What was our marriage then? If you didn't love me, why were you so good to me? If you did love me, how can you let go so easily? You won't even try to stop me? You don't care at all." Her accusation was almost laughable. She was the one proposing divorce, the one betraying our vows. Yet she was the one questioning why I wasn't begging her to stay. "Elena, you brought this up. You said you love someone else. I am fulfilling your wish, giving you freedom, and guaranteeing you a wealthy life. What else do you want? Do you want me to hug your legs and cry, begging you not to leave? So the three of us can torture each other in some twisted dynamic." I stood up, done with the conversation. "Read the agreement. If there are no issues, meet me at the firm at 9:00 a.m. I'll sleep at the office tonight." I turned toward the foyer, grabbing my suit jacket and car keys. Behind me came the sound of her suppressed sobbing, filled with grievance and confusion, as if she were the one being abandoned. I didn't look back. I closed the door, sealing her crying inside that expensive cage. I stepped into the elevator, looked at the expressionless man in the mirrored reflection, and tried to pull the corners of my mouth up. I couldn't smile. "Elena, you ask why I don't cry? Because my tears ran dry 7 years ago." The next morning at 9 a.m., I arrived at the law firm. Elena was there. Her eyes were swollen, her face haggard, wearing a simple white dress as if attending a funeral. Standing next to her was a young boy, Julian. He wore a washed-out t-shirt and jeans. He was thin, his eyes clear, but carrying a mix of stubbornness and anxiety. Seeing me, he subconsciously pulled Elena behind him, striking a protective pose. It was ridiculous. He lived on my money, pursued my legal wife, and now postured to protect her from me. I ignored him and looked at Elena. "Did you bring the agreement?" Elena pulled the document from her bag and handed it to the paralegal. I noticed her hands were shaking. The whole process was incredibly fast. Because the agreement was clear and the asset division generous, there was no arguing. We were like two synchronized business partners signing the final contract. When the notarization was complete, a sense of relief washed over me. Done. I checked my watch. Per the agreement, the title transfer for the condo and car will be handled by my staff within 3 days. The $7 million will be in your account within the week. I turned to leave. "Caleb," Elena called out. I stopped and looked back. Her lips moved, trying to form words, but eventually she just said, "Take care." I nodded, looking past her to land my gaze on Julian. I walked toward him. The boy's body instantly tensed, his eyes full of guard. I stood in front of him, half a head taller, close enough to see the nervous sweat on his forehead. "Julian," I said, my voice flat, "congratulations. Your pure love has won." His face flushed red. "My feelings for Elena are sincere. It's not what you think." "What do I think?" I smiled faintly. "I'm not thinking anything. I just want to remind you of something. Elena is a woman accustomed to a certain lifestyle. The water she drinks is flown in from France. Her aromatherapy oils are custom blends from a boutique in Italy. Her monthly skincare and wardrobe budget is more than you would spend a year, maybe several. From now on, that's all on you." Julian's face turned a deeper shade of crimson, half shame, half anger. "I will work hard. I can paint. I can make money. I will give Elena happiness. With my own hands, not like you, reeking of dirty money." "Good. Ambitious." I patted his shoulder. He flinched at the weight of my hand. "I hope the speed at which you monetize your talent can keep up with the speed at which she spends money. I wish you happiness." I didn't look at them again. I walked straight to my car. In the rearview mirror, I saw Elena squatting on the sidewalk, covering her face, sobbing uncontrollably. Julian tried clumsily to comfort her, but she only cried harder. Why the tears? Hadn't she finally escaped the prison and run into the arms of a great romance? Perhaps the freedom I granted was too crisp, too absolute, making the pathetic little guilt she used to decorate her betrayal feel superfluous and cheap. Life after divorce was quieter than I expected. My focus shifted entirely back to work. 7 years ago, to save my father-in-law's company from bankruptcy and to fulfill a marriage contract that was essentially a business transaction, I had burned the candle at both ends. I took a small architectural firm and built it into the Vance Group, a titan in the industry today. After marriage, to accommodate Elena's moods, I had deliberately slowed down. I carved out huge chunks of time to be with her, gallery hopping, sketching trips to European villages, doing all the things she considered romantic. Now I could work without distraction. My assistant, David, noticed, "Mr. Vance, your intensity lately. It's terrifying. It's like you're running on rocket fuel." I smiled and didn't explain. Only in the dead of night, returning to that empty penthouse, would I feel a moment of disorientation. I hadn't sold the apartment. It was mine before the marriage, but I had the cleaners remove everything that belonged to Elena. Her paintings, her clothes, her scents. Everything carrying her trace was boxed up and shipped to her new $4 million condo. Friends heard about the divorce and came to console me. My childhood friend, Marcus, was indignant over drinks. Caleb, you spoiled her too much. Elena is a pampered princess who doesn't know how the world works. And that pretty boy, eating your food, taking your money, and sleeping with your wife? How the hell do you tolerate that? If it were me, I'd have his legs broken. I swore my glass of scotch. What good would breaking his legs do? It would only make Elena see him as a martyr for love. She'd follow him even more blindly. Marcus paused. So, you're just letting it go? $7 million plus a luxury condo. That's an expensive divorce. You let them off easy. Easy. I took a sip, the amber liquid burning down my throat. Marcus, what do you think is the greatest punishment for them? Ruin them. Make them penniless. I shook my head. No, the greatest punishment is to hand them exactly what they crave, untouched, and then let them watch as it rots and stinks in the face of reality. So-called pure love, once touched by the grit of daily survival and the need to bow before money, quickly loses its halo, revealing the ugly core beneath. I didn't want their brief pain. I wanted them to chew on the bitter fruit of their choices for a long, long time. My prediction came true faster than I imagined. About 3 months later, Marcus brought news. Elena had sold the red Porsche. Heard from a guy at the dealership. She sold it in a rush, way below market value. Probably cash flow issues, Marcus said, gloating. I wasn't surprised. $7 million is an astronomical sum for a normal person. But for Elena, who was used to infinite resources, it was just a number that gave her a false sense of security. She didn't know how to invest or manage wealth. And Julian? A college student who hadn't graduated. His paintings might have had soul, but without market hype and fame, they were worthless. Their romance was crashing into gravity. 2 months after that, I received a text from an unknown number. Mr. Vance, it's Julian. Can I meet with you? I looked at the message, a cold sneer forming on my lips. Inevitable. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my office. Julian looked far more haggard than the last time I saw him. Dark circles bruised his eyes. The arrogant, lofty artist vibe had been ground down by life. He sat opposite me, nervously stirring a cheap coffee. What do you want? I asked directly. He took a deep breath, seeming to muster great resolve. Mr. Vance, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. But Elena, she's not doing well. She can't paint. She locks herself in her room all day. We've run into some financial difficulties. And I leaned back, watching him. You want to borrow money? His face went red instantly. No, I'm not here to beg for money. I wanted to ask if you could. Maybe use your connections to help me sell some paintings? Or introduce me to some commercial illustration work. Anything that pays. The artist who once screamed about not bowing to dirty money was now voluntarily placing his art on the scales to be weighed for cash. Elena knows art better than anyone. She knows gallery owners, curators. Why doesn't she help you? I asked, knowing the answer. Julian's eyes dimmed. She tried. But those people, they were only polite to Elena because of you. Now, they say my work is too amateur, no commercial value. Elena hit a wall a few times and stopped going. How realistic and how tragic. The adoration and respect Elena enjoyed in the art world. How much of it was for her talent and how much was for Mrs. Vance? She probably couldn't tell the difference until the tea went cold and the guests left. Mr. Vance, please. Julian's voice cracked with desperation. I can't watch Elena suffer with me. If you help me this one time, I'll work like a dog for you. I looked at him. I looked at this young man who, for the sake of love, destroyed my marriage and ruined his own future. His face was written with helplessness and servility. He probably thought I would humiliate him or demand harsh terms. Instead, I calmly pulled a business card from my wallet and slid it across the table. This is the owner of the Apex Gallery, Arthur Cole. Go see him. Tell him I sent you. Let him see your work. Whether he helps you, and how much, depends on your own ability. Julian froze. He couldn't believe I agreed so easily. He picked up the card, his hands trembling. Mr. Vance, I'm not helping you for your sake, and certainly not for Elena's. I cut him off. I'm doing it for that pure love you talked about. I leaned forward slightly, staring into his eyes. I want you to see clearly just how fragile your pride is. It survives only on my charity. Your claim of using your own hands is a joke. Julian, from the moment you fell in love with her, you were destined to live in my shadow forever. That is your real punishment. His face went pale, drained of blood. The help I gave him wasn't aid. It was a poison pill coated in sugar. He could refuse, and continue to struggle in the mud with Elena, watching their love ground to dust by poverty. Or he could accept and forever bear the brand of the ex-husband's charity, never able to lift his head in front of the woman he loved. Checkmate. I watched him leave, looking like a lost soul. I felt no joy, just a boundless desolation, because I knew this revenge was far from over. The real show was yet to come. Arthur Cole at the Apex Gallery respected my referral. Not long after, he organized a small solo exhibition for Julian. People in the circle knew my relationship with Arthur, so they showed up to save face. The exhibition was a success. Julian sold a few paintings, not for huge sums, but enough to solve their immediate crisis. The media even ran a few pieces calling him an up-and-coming visionary. For a moment, Julian was flying high. Marcus called me, sounding pissed. Caleb, I don't get you. You're funding the enemy. That kid is walking around with his nose in the air, telling everyone he made it on his own talent. No mention of you. Let him say what he wants, I replied, flipping through a file, my tone even. Aren't you afraid they'll actually live happily ever after now? Marcus, remember this. It's easy to go from rags to riches, but hard to go from riches to rags. I said quietly. I gave him a piece of candy to make him forget the bitterness of life for a moment. But Elena's appetite can't be satisfied by a single piece of candy. When Julian's ability to monetize his talent fails to keep up with Elena's consumption again, the bigger conflict will explode. A man's greatest pain isn't poverty. It's having had wealth, losing it, and watching helplessly as he fails to get it back. I gave Julian hope, only to turn that hope into a noose. Sure enough, after the initial buzz of the exhibition faded, Julian's art fell back into obscurity. His talent was real, but he lacked the depth and experience to consistently churn out market-ready work. Their lives, after a brief return to decency, rapidly slid back into financial strain. And this time, Elena's complaints and dissatisfaction became undisguised. My assistant, David, reported these things to me discreetly. He said people saw Elena and Julian arguing in a gallery. Elena accused Julian of being stagnant, his art empty. Julian shot back that she didn't understand art, only money. The former soulmates were now enemies over cash. How ironic. The moment I decided to pull the net closed was a chance encounter. I was accompanying a key partner to a high-end club, the Gilded Lily, to discuss a deal. In the lobby, I saw Elena. She was wearing heavy makeup and a revealing black dress, drinking with a bloated, middle-aged man. The man's hand was resting inappropriately on her waist. She was smiling, but the humiliation and stiffness in her eyes were impossible to hide. I recognized the man, Mr. Baxter, a notorious lecher in our circle. My heart felt like it had been violently squeezed. Even though we were divorced, even though she betrayed me, seeing her degrade herself like this, I couldn't remain indifferent. I made an excuse, left the private room, and called her number. It rang for a long time before she picked up. Background noise of music and vulgar laughter filtered through. Hello. Her voice was raspy and guarded. It's me. The line went silent. She seemed to move to a quiet corner. Caleb? Why? Why are you calling me? Are you at the Gilded Lily? I asked. She fell silent, her breathing quickening. Elena, if you need money, ask me. You don't need to do this. My voice was as cold as ice. She suddenly laughed, a sound full of misery and self-mockery. Ask you? Caleb, what right do you have to manage me? We're divorced. Who I'm with, how I make money, has nothing to do with you. Do you feel accomplished seeing me this pathetic? I don't. You do. She shrieked, cutting me off. You want to see me regret it. See that I can't live without you. I tell you, even if I die, I won't take another cent from you. She screamed the last words and slammed the phone down. I listened to the disconnect tone and closed my eyes. I realized my revenge had twisted her pride, pushing her to another extreme. This wasn't the outcome I wanted. It was time to let her know the whole truth. I didn't contact Elena again. Instead, I went straight to Julian's studio. It was a shabby room in a basement apartment in Queens, damp, dark, the air thick with turpentine and paint. Julian was painting. When he saw me, his face cycled through shock, embarrassment, and hostility. What are you doing here? Just checking on the visionary's new work. I looked around, my gaze landing on the unfinished canvas on the easel. It was a distorted face, full of pain and struggle. Seems your great love hasn't brought you much inspiration. None of your business. He threw down his brush, like a provoked lion cub. Caleb, what do you want? You gave me hope, then let me crash. You watch us suffer. Is it entertaining for you? No, not entertaining at all. I shook my head and walked toward him. Julian, I came today to tell you a story. I pulled over a stool and sat down, ignoring his glare. 7 years ago, I was a poor kid with nothing, just started my own architecture firm. Elena was the only daughter of the famous Professor Sterling, a goddess in the industry. We met at an academic forum. Professor Sterling admired me. He wanted to set me up with Elena. Elena back then, she was beautiful, talented, like a fairy untouched by the dust of the world. I admit I fell for her, but our backgrounds were worlds apart. I knew my place, until one day, Professor Sterling came to me. He told me his firm was facing bankruptcy due to a massive investment error. He owed millions in debt. Julian's expression shifted. He seemed to realize where this was going. I continued. He begged me to help. He said I was the sharpest commercial mind he'd ever seen, the only one who could save the company. In exchange, he would hand the firm's management to me, and he would have Elena marry me. Sound like a joke, right? Using a daughter's marriage to save a company. But it was his only way out. Elena. She agreed to marry me to save her father. She believed our marriage was a transaction from day one. I looked at Julian's shocked face and smiled, a smile full of bitterness. That is why she called our marriage a gilded cage. In her heart, she always felt like a sacrifice. So when she met you, a pure young man risking everything for art, she felt resonance. She felt liberation. This was the first twist I had prepared. I wanted Julian, and eventually Elena, to understand that what she called breaking free was laughable. In the face of my 7 years of devotion, her narrative was unjust. I spent 3 years working sleepless nights, turning a debt-ridden mess into the Vance Group. I paid off all the debts. I gave the professor and Elena the most dignified life possible. I thought time would wash it away. I thought my effort could turn a transaction into real love. I thought I had succeeded, until she told me she fell in love with you. Julian was frozen. The blood drained from his face, his lips trembling, unable to form a word. He had always thought he was the hero rescuing the princess from a cold, loveless marriage. He never imagined he was just a prop in her self-righteous drama. And the enemy, reeking of money, was the one who had silently carried the weight of the world. Why? Why didn't you tell her the truth? He mumbled. Tell her what? That her father used her as a bargaining chip? That the family prestige she's so proud of is a castle in the sky, held up by my hands. I stood up. I was protecting her dignity. I wanted her to remain the fairy. But she took my protection for granted. I looked down at him. Julian, do you understand now? The love between you two was built on a lie from the start. She doesn't love you. She loves the illusion of escaping reality. I turned and left, leaving him to digest the brutal truth. I knew he would tell Elena. And Elena, stripped of her victim status, how would she face her betrayal? How would she face the cage she had pushed away with her own hands? That night, I got a call from Elena. She was screaming hysterically. Caleb, you liar. You devil. Why didn't you tell me sooner? You made me look like a fool. Tell you, and then what? Have you be grateful and stay with me? Elena, that's not love, that's guilt. I don't need it. I answered calmly. You ruined me. You ruined everything. The person who ruined you is yourself. I hung up. For the next week, she called and texted like a madwoman. Curses, then questions, then begging. I didn't reply to any of it. Until a week later, she appeared in the lobby of my building. She looked terrible, skeletal, her unwashed face as pale as paper. Caleb, let's talk. Her voice was hoarse. I brought her to my office. She stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at the city below, her silhouette desolate. I went to see my dad, she said suddenly. He admitted everything. Okay. I poured her a glass of water. She turned around, tears streaming silently. I'm sorry. Caleb, I'm really sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know you did so much for me, for my family. I always thought I was a cold-blooded businessman taking advantage of a crisis. I finished for her. She closed her eyes in pain and nodded. I was wrong. I was so wrong. She opened her eyes, filled with regret. Julian and we broke up. He was right. I didn't love him. I loved a fantasy. Caleb, can we go back to how it was? She finally asked it. This belated attempt at reconciliation might have stirred something in me months ago. But now? No. I looked at her. The face in front of me overlapped with the smiling girl in my memories, then peeled away. I shook my head. Elena, we can't go back. Why? She stepped forward, grabbing my arm, her nails digging deep into my flesh. Is it because you still blame me? I admit I was wrong. I'll change. I'll do anything for you. Please, give me one more chance. No, it's not that. I gently pried her fingers off my arm. I walked to my desk and unlocked a drawer. From inside, I pulled out a picture frame. Inside was a yellowing photograph. A little boy about 4 or 5 years old, laughing innocently, He had chubby cheeks and bright eyes. When Elena saw the photo, her body went rigid. The blood drained from her face instantly. Her lips began to quiver, her eyes filling with terror and agony. This is our... She couldn't finish the sentence. Our son, Leo. I said the name. We hadn't spoken in 5 years. Our son. 5 years ago, he died in a car accident. Do you remember? My voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a mountain. Every word smashed in her heart. Of course she remembered. It was the greatest nightmare of her life, the crack where our marriage actually broke. That day, she had taken our son to the countryside to paint. On the way back, a truck driver fell asleep at the wheel and lost control, hitting their car. She suffered minor injuries. But our Leo died instantly. After that, Elena collapsed. Severe depression. Nightmares. She couldn't paint, couldn't live. She blamed herself entirely. To save her, I gave everything. I hired the best therapists. I dropped work to take her around the world. I hid everything related to Leo. I never said his name. I thought time and my absolute love could heal her. But the wound was too deep. It was so deep that we could never go back. She wouldn't let me touch her. She felt pleasure was a betrayal of our son. Our marriage died with him. And now I was ripping that bloody scab right off. Because the second and final twist was here. Elena. I looked at her deathly pale face. I spoke the truth that would destroy her completely. Do you know the name of the truck driver who killed our son? She shook her head blankly, trembling like a leaf in a gale. His name was Robert Hayes. Fatigued driving, full liability. He also died on the scene. I paused, giving her breath. Then I dropped the bomb. He had a son, 22 years old now, a college student. Because his father died and his mother remarried, the family was destitute. He lived on welfare and loans. That boy, his last name is also Hayes. His name is Julian. Julian Hayes. Boom. I could almost hear the sound of Elena's world collapsing. Her eyes widened to the limit, pupils shrinking into pinpricks of pure horror. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out, just a guttural, gasping rattle like a dying person. The circle was finally complete. A perfect dark loop. Years ago, when I learned the truth of the accident, I was angry, I wanted revenge. But when I found out the driver left behind a helpless teenager, my hatred turned into something complex. The driver was dead. Hatred wouldn't bring Leo back. But the boy, Julian, was innocent. In the end, through endless pain, I chose a secret way to atone. I don't know who I was atoning for. Maybe for my son I couldn't protect. I started sponsoring Julian anonymously through the charity. I watched him grow, go to college, pursue art. It was a twisted comfort. Through him, I could see a shadow of Leo growing up. I never planned to tell Elena. I was afraid she would transfer her hatred to the innocent kid. I just wanted her to heal. Who knew fate would write such a grotesque script? I tried to protect her, yet she fell in love with the son of her sworn enemy, in the most unimaginable way. When she stood before me, speaking of pure love for Julian with that mix of guilt and longing. My persistence, my protection, my self-deception, it all shattered. Why was I calm? Because in that moment, my heart died. Why didn't I stop her? Because this marriage had been sentenced to death by fate itself. Why did I help Julian? Why did I push them into the abyss step by step? Because I wanted her to see that her pure love was built on a foundation of blood and filth. So we sponsored him. Not out of kindness. Elena finally found her voice. It was shattered glass. Yes. I looked at her with no pity, only dead coldness. It was my wishful thinking, my self-righteous compensation to the universe. Then, you watch me step by step. Watch me walk toward him, fall in love with him. What were you thinking? She asked in despair. What was I thinking? I thought of 5 years ago, outside the operating room, when the doctor told me Leo was gone. The feeling of the sky falling. And now, I return that feeling to you, untouched. I was thinking, Elena, that you never truly loved our son. If you loved him, your body, your intuition would have made you feel sick when you got close to a Hayes. You would have felt pain, not passion, not excitement. That sentence was the straw that broke the camel's back. Elena let out a gut-wrenching scream. She clutched her head and collapsed to the floor, curling into a ball, rolling and convulsing in agony. No. I love Leo. I love him. I didn't know. I really didn't know. Her crying was filled with absolute despair and regret. Every sob was a knife carving out her own heart. The office door burst open. David and a few employees rushed in, looking at the scene in panic. I waved my hand, signaling them to leave. Then I walked over to Elena, squatted down, and gently placed the photo frame next to her trembling hand. Now, Do you know why you were crying? I asked the question that had hovered in my mind since the divorce. You love someone else. I'll let you go. Why cry? You aren't crying because you lost me. You aren't crying because the marriage is broken. You are crying because you personally destroyed the last shred of dignity you had as a mother. You are crying because you used your so-called affair to desecrate the only memory of our son. You are crying because you finally realized your life is a complete, absurd tragedy. And I am just the spectator. I stood up and took one last look at her. The woman who was once my entire world was now lying on the cold floor, a heap of mud that could never be shaped again. Her screaming faded into repressed, hopeless whimpering. I didn't stay. I turned and walked out of the office. Behind me lay her endless regret. Ahead of me, facing the blinding sunlight through the windows, lay a future without her. In the sky, I seemed to see Leo's innocent, smiling face again. I whispered softly, "Leo, Daddy got revenge for you." At the corner of my eye, a cold liquid slid down. It turned out my tears hadn't run dry. I was just waiting for a moment worth crying for. Story complete.